All right, we are live. We are getting hot and takey, and we are spilling some tea here on some stuff that has happened in the last week or so in chat and in the league. It's Eagles and Vikings. We'll see if others join throughout. Kind of put this in the chat, and no one really spoke up, so it could just be the two of us and kind of a quick pod after a couple of longer ones, but nothing else. It'll be a good conversation. So thanks, RJ.
Yeah, always fun to hop on and take some shots at some of the league mates.
Yep. So I think we'll just kick it off. We were talking a little bit about this pre-pod. Big event of the last week. So let's look at what's happened in the last week. We've gotten some camp buzz where everyone is happy and everyone's awesome. Haven't had any major injuries except maybe something happened to Khalil Shakir today. I guess I don't know. And we've had two trades, both involving Broncos and both involving cornerbacks. So nothing's really happening. We are in the dead part of the year. I think everyone understands that. Everyone's taking a deep breath and getting ready for camp. But there's only one thing we could really talk about, and that's the Panthers Giants gate of the weekend. So I mean, never love it when somebody posts something, but on one side you can't blame Panthers, and on the other side, I think sometimes Giants likes the attention.
Yeah, I mean it definitely was a great way to get some engagement in our group chat. So I appreciated that.
Well, I
Uh,
mean, yeah, and it was on a couple of dimensions too. It was the trade itself, then putting trades on blast, and then it was reliance on trade calculators and how anyone who relies on a trade calculator or quotes a trade calculator or even looks at a trade calculator as a sheep. And at the same time, if you don't accept one of Goose's or Seahawks trades when they send it to you, you're also a sheep. So I think it was multi-layered too. So one of those where you kind of lit a match in one spot, and next thing you know, the whole warehouse is on fire.
yeah, it was fun to watch. I can say that I never shared my opinion, but I'm kind of in the middle. I don't care if somebody uses a trade calculator. Our league is completely different than anything else out there. So,
And I've talked about this in previous pods, so I won't go through the same diatribe again, although I probably will. So I apologize in advance. But, you know, there is such a thing as an arbitrage trade where you have a value on a player that the market has at a lower value, so you can acquire a player you like at a lower value. That said, there may be a player that people are higher on than you, and you sell that player to get other things you like. It's trading 101. And what's a great way to test the market if you're not looking at ADP or you don't have access to any of these paid sites or things like that? You look at Keep Trade Cut because they have a basic value of votes. Now, are those votes bullshit? Who cares? They've got enough clicks that they're looked at and quoted in a lot of podcasts about a lot of values for players, as well as the ADP coming off of these main sites. So you're looking for a market level or value for a player that you could potentially get something you like better on. It's very simple and the exact point of trading. So shaming people for it, I'm sorry, is fucking weak sauce.
I can agree with that. I don't think anybody wants to be shamed for anything that they choose to do in fantasy.
Because that's the other point. It's who the fuck cares? Like this is fantasy football. This is not life and death. We've got $35 on the line here. I don't think that's going to make or break anybody in the league. This is all for fun anyway. So, I guess, and that's the other thing. It's different types of fun. Some I can relate to. Some I have a harder time. Like, hey, making people feel like shit or stuff like that. That's not something I do for fun. But stirring up hornets' nests, that's usually not something else I do for fun either. But clearly, others do.
I I don't know. I don't mind kicking the proverbial bee's nest. Um, but
Well,
that's like Panthers did. That gets the engagement. You get to understand where your league mates are, their mindset on some things, and later on down the line, it definitely helps if you want to try to get a trade done with them.
and again, like you said, and kind of the core reason for doing it. Because again, I think Panthers talks to a lot of us on personal chats and stuff like that, and I think he actually said, "Hey, I'm going to do this to maybe get some activity going in the league channel," and he did. Like I think before that there were maybe like 3 comments over the last week, and one of them was related to like a basketball game or something like that. There wasn't a whole lot happening, and then that posts, and next thing you know, you come back and it's 150 messages in chat. So sometimes you need the controversy.
Is that what we should try for next off season? Like at a certain point when it becomes June, we should just talk about basketball and the NBA finals and the postseason for a month, and then transition back into football.
I mean, I guess we could do that. I mean, that could be the second half of the podcast here is talking about the NBA finals and how they're going to be over in 2 more games, and we get to spend the off season thinking about all those major trades that are going to happen with those 5 or 6 players, and it's almost random number generator. Like 3
Yeah.
you can predict, and the other 3 it's going to be like, what the hell? Like Donovan Mitchell's going to get talked about a lot, or other Cleveland pieces. DeMar DeRozan's going to get talked about a lot, and then Jimmy Butler's going to get talked about a lot. We already know that. Oh, and that guy in Los Angeles, but nobody gives a shit about him anymore.
Well, I mean, it's not like there's any good rookies to talk about. So
True. But
so you mentioned Broncos trade. Do we want to talk about the one trade that was done that we didn't discuss? The Rashad Weaver, Mike Sandstrill, and Jordan Poyer for Jalix Hunt and PJ Locke.
I mean,
That's enough time on it, right?
I don't know what to say about it. Like Locke is battling for his position, but good young player. Hunt is, I believe, a rookie, right?
Yes.
Yeah. A rookie this year for Weaver, who is potentially a comeback. I like Sainstrill, and I was potentially thinking about him if I could get him. I think it was in the 4th, but didn't fall to me. And then Poyer, he's one of those sexy names at the position, but now he's in Miami and not in Buffalo. So
Expensive and old.
Yeah.
But it'll be good this year.
Yeah, well, that's the conversation about that trade. I have a couple of messages here of people taking a look at things, so we may get a few more joiners here in the coming minutes. But I mean, and we were also talking about the comment, the basic structure of the trade too. So for the people who didn't see it, it was in basic structure. Giants trying to break down Lamb, and in the process, from Panthers, you get Jalen Reed, Brian Thomas, Trey Benson, and get younger on defense. This is, of course, as Giants is trying to pull the Pokemon of catching them all for an entire first round, barring quarterbacks. Because, I mean, you're not going to get all of the quarterbacks because you only get 3 of them on a team this year. But basically every other position, he's determined to make them Giants.
All rookies.
I mean, that would be fun if a team actually did that, the right way. It did say a 5th rounder that they gave 2 years to, 1 year to each of his, kicker and special teams, and then I guess the other 24 positions were 4-year rookie contracts. Like, hell, maybe I would say that's something I'll try next year, but I'd have to completely flip my team again. God knows I can't do that.
That's all right. Dolphins is going to do that next year.
The other teams get to do the things I dream of. Saints gets to actually tear his team down to picks and nothing, whereas Dolphins has 70 picks for next year. Like, I'm just jealous. That's all there is to it, I guess. I'm a bit of a hater for that. But back to the Giants-Panthers trade, there were some defensive pieces getting swapped there as well. But the main piece was really seeing CeeDee Lamb broken down into Trey Benson, Brian Thomas and Jaden Reed, which, again, I think for anyone who's not in a startup is an instant no. But if you look at what a lot of for a top 3 or top 5 pick in a startup goes for, you're probably talking the players that get taken at those picks. So I don't know. We talked about this a bunch before the pod.
Yeah. I think in theory it's not. One thing that Bengals has always talked about when he's on, and that I've said multiple times, is like we kind of transition from a dynasty rankings to almost a redraft rankings as we get closer to the beginning of the season. And this is kind of the point where we start to transition into those type of ratings. In theory, the idea of breaking a CD Lamb down into a handful of rookies, minus Reed, that are like unproven and we aren't necessarily sure where they fall as far as on their depth chart because we're pre-training camp. It's not an awful assessment of value. It's just very much the most incorrect time to be offering for rookies because they are at their least valuable, and most likely the least valuable throughout their career. But that doesn't necessarily mean that like value is a like realized value. Like you shouldn't be trading these players off after you have used draft capital on them. So like I get it if you're looking at like 2024 redraft rankings. Like, yeah, sure, it probably looks pretty fine. But like those are the particular players that you shouldn't be using value for.
Yeah, agree. And I mean, to the other side of that coin, you've just used draft capital on that piece, so you've set a value for that player. So any team trying to acquire that player has literally the most recent, except maybe for a couple of pieces of camp news, the most recent data point for what the value of that player is. It's not a question, it's not a debate. You paid X for the player. So that player is worth that unless something else has happened. Now you can debate whether that was a reach or a less or stuff like that, but there is a hard and fast data point that's what that player is worth. I think people know that one of the podcasts I frequently listen to is a player profiler stuff, and I think one of the best quotes I've heard from those shows is there are 2 times a year that teams can't lie to you with coach speak or anything else. It's free agency and it's the draft. It's at some point they are paying a certain amount of money for a player, which tells you what they think about that player, or they're using a certain level of draft capital on a player that is telling you exactly what they think about that player. And that is, I would say the free agency less than our league because we have infinite money and the cap is fake here. But you take the other piece of it, and that's what that player thinks of that player, and that team thinks of that player, and what their value is. So even though you want to sell them for more, like I do in a lot of cases with my rookies, you can't do it immediately because to the point to literally you just spent the 127 on this guy. You think you're gonna get the 115 for him? Pound sand.
Yeah, that's fair. Very rarely do any of these players just go up, especially in year one.
Well, yeah. And then, I know I'm using examples from my team, but, I don't have shame when it comes to stuff like this. I think that players are valued at that, and I'm willing to wait until the news changes. And if the information changes, my values will change. And that's just the way I play the game. But, no one's going to give me a 3rd round pick for Carson Steele right now since I picked him in the 5th round. Did he have a sweet catch from Patrick Mahomes in camp last week? Absolutely. Is that enough to have him jump 2 rounds in our league? Absolutely not. But, hey, if somebody wants to give me that pick for him, he's all yours. But that's, again, I know I'm saying what everyone else knows right now, that no shit, idiot. This is why there's no trades outside of Broncos flipping corners around and shit like that. But you know, it's tough.
I don't. I think that partially there's no trades because we want to see who gets hurt and who's not going to be available for this year before we start really investing more into it. Like I know I'm good. Like I have a good rough outline of like what my team's going to be. I don't need any knee injuries or anything like that. If I do, I have enough draft capital to go out and maybe buy a replacement, but yeah, I'm not buying anything right now because I don't need to buy somebody that gets an ACL injury 2 weeks later.
Well, yeah, and that's the other thing. It's not the time to go buy that luxury piece for you either. It's like, okay, yeah, I have the draft capital, but do I want to spend it on this? Like the teams that would go for say CD Lamb right now and actually had the value to give Giants what he wants for it. Outside of maybe two teams, there's not really a market match. Like, okay, he could sell CD Lamb potentially back to Arizona, who I think had him originally before he got traded to like Pats or to Browns or something like that. So he could do that. And Cardinals have the draft cap to go get him. Does it seem like there's any interest to really add points to that team right now when he's really adding draft capital and playing for next year? I doubt it. Has he tried? I bet. But it's tough to do that, and that's why you get some of the premium pieces. It's really hard to break them down for what the trade calculators say is value. So, I guess maybe trade calculators are idiots tools here, but you know what? It helps people get a balance on what's a crazy league, so I'm okay with it. I don't know. Anything else on this?
No. I mean, I finally pulled up Keep Trade Cut for the first time in I couldn't tell you how long, and I'm looking at their dynasty rankings right now. It's definitely interesting.
Well, yeah, and that's one of those where it's interesting to kind of you do the initial thing, you go and look at the rankings and say, okay, here's a player I'm trying to trade. Let's look at all the players around him in this, and is there a player below him that I like more? And try and go make something happen. It's
They
it's
have
like
no. They have Caleb as the number 7 dynasty quarterback. I'm done with that website.
Well, again, no. So you're missing the. You guys are missing the point.
I'm joking. It's a joke.
I know. You guys have too much fun with me. Anyways, so one of the other things we're thinking about is hot takes this time of year. So we're starting to see some news come out of OTAs about where we think players are going to go and who's looking good and who's looking shitty. No major injuries to your point yet, but maybe some inkling of some camp competitions that we didn't think were going to be, or where we thought there were going to be competitions where it doesn't appear to be so far. At this point, it's maybe too early to go hot takey, which is exactly the right time to do it because that's what makes him hot. If all of a sudden, like, oh my God, JJ McCarthy is burning up the practice field. He's been 100% in his accuracy the last 3 days and has thrown for 17 touchdowns. Yes, people are going to be talking about him winning the starting job, the Rookie of the Year, and taking Minnesota to the Super Bowl. Like that'll be the hot take then. But let's see the people who say it before all that shit happens.
I saw a take today that Spencer Rattler's the best value in Dynasty right now.
I think it's a little bit early for that. In OTAs, I think he was definitely second best behind Carr. Carr was shredding things, and Rattler was not looking great. But the other quarterback they have there, that's not Hill, also was not looking great. So it's like, okay, he's battling for that second role there. He's clearly not anywhere close to Carr in terms of his sharpness, but maybe someday he gets there.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to see him get some type of an opportunity. It would definitely be interesting if he got the nod to start a game, even if it was due to injury, before somebody like a Drake May or a JJ, Michael Penix. Like, that'd be pretty wild.
I don't know. I feel like, again, May seems like a shoe in to start. Um, Darnold, if he starts anything, is basically a throw him out there so that McCarthy doesn't get killed at the early part of the schedule, and then put McCarthy in when it's clear that Darnold doesn't have it, and then a couple of the other things. But I'd say the one thing I really haven't seen anything from is have you heard anything really from the Cardinals camp? Like, I feel like I should be hearing more about Marvin Harrison Jr., but I've really heard nothing. Like, has he even signed his deal and signed his player stuff so that he's actually able to go to camp?
I doubt it. I have not looked, but I wouldn't be shocked if he hasn't.
So, like, here's I guess is my hot take, and it's probably not so hot at this point, but it may be hot because I'm being naive about it. It's you know I don't think Marvin Harrison is going to score in the top 8 of rookie receivers this year.
Of rookie receivers?
Of rookie receivers.
Ooh, that's interesting.
I get it. He's his dad, but more athletic. And Marvin Harrison was fantastic. But anyone pay attention to what happened to Marvin Harrison after he finished playing football? Wasn't he on trial for murder, and then also robbed somebody else's car wash and shit like this? Like, it's Antonio Brown level CTE, and this was the example that this guy's grown up with. Sure, he was awesome at Ohio State, but everything this offseason has kind of come off as a little bit erratic and a little bit off the beaten path. Like, are we sure Marvin Harrison Jr. is really going to be a great pro?
I don't know. He thinks very highly of himself. I see a little bit of the like Chase Claypool type of personality in him, which that might hinder him, especially his like his progression as a player. I don't know. I don't know if he's that, like, if he's not in the top 7, but I can definitely see him being the lowest scoring of those big name wide receivers. Man.
I'd say even beyond that, and I know I hated on some of the picks here. So let me see if I can pull up is there a filter on the draft report for position? Okay, any position. So the first 10 receivers taken in our draft: Harrison, Neighbors, Odunze, Thomas, Worthy, Coleman, McConkey, Leggett, Pearsall, Mitchell, Polk, Burton, Wilson, that's the end of the first rounder. So I think I said 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yeah, I could easily see a situation where 7 or 8 of those guys outscore Marvin Harrison this year.
Okay.
Well, I mean, let's look at this. Neighbor steps into a number 1 role. Odunze doesn't, but is attached to the number 7 dynasty asset in in the league right now. Thomas is apparently Calvin Ridley on Rocket Packs. Xavier Worthy. Everyone knows how much I love Xavier Worthy, so I won't spend much time there. Everyone else is either injured or looks like shit in Buffalo, so Keon Coleman might get 180 targets this year. Justin Herbert's going to play some tight end, so he's got the ability to feed McConkey. Other guys, first-round receivers here at 17 and 18, like, if Harrison doesn't have shit together, I mean, I think that's not too hard of a thing to get to. It's either he isn't in shape and doesn't play the first couple of games, and then gets himself hurt because he's out of shape, or gets himself suspended for doing something stupid, and then that's that. All right, maybe I'm trying to go a little too spicy here. Bring us back out of the volcano realm here to something Still hot, but not necessarily so crazy. Or go crazier. I don't know. It's up to you.
Oh, I was just. I think this year is going to be the peak running back by committee, and I think we're only going to have about 5 running backs that are reasonably like RB1s, scoring in the like higher than 200s. Like I can see McCaffrey, ETN, Hall, maybe like Henry.
So there were 13 running backs above 200 last year. It was McCaffrey, ETN, Mostert, Kyron, Brees, Rashad White, Joe Mixon, Henry, Gibbs, James Cook, Alvin Kamara, Bijan, and Pacheco.
Yeah, I think that I think everything under Joe Mixon. Like I think the 1, 2, 3, the 6 in that like middle 200s. I think those just completely disappear. Like I think there's a bunch of guys in the high 180s, 170s, but I just think that we are at a point where there's like 5 guys that are actually like in their playbook, like they are used as an offensive weapon, and everybody else is just kind of filling a role. And I definitely think it'll change, but I think this is peak like splitting carries for the league.
Right. And again, the league goes through iterations and different looks and values different things at different times. And it definitely seems to be the era of, you know, the Shanahan McVay systems. Is I'm going to show you the same look of the same formation, and I'm going to run 8 different things out of it. And with the perpetuation of those 2 playbooks, as well as their coaching trees, um, you're just going to keep seeing more and more of that. So, I think instead of kind of seeing the platoon of like, oh, it's Derrick Henry and James White, could not be confused for each other at all. Pictures of the 2 of them standing next to each other go viral on Twitter. Things like that. Like, we're not seeing those anymore. It's more, hey, they drafted Blake Corum because he looks exactly like Kyron Williams. Like, okay, I guess that makes some sense too. Is I want another guy like that so that I can give that guy some rest and get similar production because that's what works in my offense.
Yep. Yeah, there's going to be multiple NFL teams that have like 3 running backs with 110 fantasy points.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to take it to the league instead of players for a minute.
Okay.
My next hot take is there are 0 repeat divisional champions next year that repeat. So all of the Bengals, Colts, Bills, Broncos, the Vikings, Buccaneers, Giants, and Rams will not repeat as their division winners. And only 2 will make their playoffs.
Oh, wow. Who are those 2?
If I had to place it right now, it's Broncos and it's Bengals.
Did Bucks win his division last year?
Yes, he did. 14-3.
Oh. Who's going to win that division? Just not him?
Not him. You made the point that he turned over his team very well and got a lot younger. But then after that, kind of everything went wrong for him.
That's true. Mike Williams is a wide receiver 3 in New York. Cortland Sutton, they might not even have a passing game. Yeah, that's true. Kenneth Walker has more competition. Javonte has more competition. I guess Kenneth Walker didn't add competition. His just got more established. Yeah, that's not it's a hot take, but not as crazy as I would think.
All right. Well, shit. I'm trying here. I'm trying to keep it spicy. I'm trying to keep it, on the edge here.
No, I like it. I'm looking at it. I'm looking at the AFC North right now, and I can see it. I can see Ravens. I can see any of those teams actually winning that division again. Even Steelers. I mean, he has Trevor Lawrence now. I like that. That is a hot take, and I'd imagine you have a lot of division winners not thrilled that you're betting against them, but I like it.
Well, let's also be honest about something here. There's two things about what I just said that teams are cursing themselves for. One, my hot take last year was that the Broncos was going to miss the playoffs, and he won the whole damn AFC. So I don't exactly have a strong history of these things being right. It would mean more if I could lean back on that. See, I said that, and look what happened. Like the closest I can say is, oh, Aiden O'Connell is going to be a, good quarter. I said Hendon Hooker was going to be the best quarterback in the class, and Aiden O'Connell was going to be damn good. Sure don't know about the first one. Not looking like it right now. And that second one, well, he started a few games and maybe wins the job this year. We'll see what happens.
I have an interesting one that kind of follows suit with yours. I don't think the Packers make the playoffs.
Ooh. So you're calling on Lions to step up, win the division, and wild cards to go everywhere else?
Yeah, I just I don't think Lions has like an amazing team, but I think he has a lot more points than Packers does. Ultimately, this might be the worst Packers team I've seen. And sure, Jeremy will make an effort to make this better, but yeah, as of right now, I don't think this is a playoff worthy team.
Wait, when the hell did Jeremy get Aaron Jones?
When he traded Derrick Henry to Bill.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, but I don't like the platoon of running backs in Carolina. Aaron Jones, who knows what, sure he's the starter now, but Tyler Boyd, DeAndre Hopkins, they might make one decent wide receiver as far as production this year. Cooper Kupp may take a back seat. Is Hawkinson still hurt? Yeah, his knee basically fell apart. So that is a very rough offense other than Jordan Love. Great quarterback. Might have one of the better quarterbacks in the league, but the rest of the offense is not good.
All right, that's fair. Yeah, I think we're going the right level of spice, but I feel like we've covered a lot of the big things like playoff winners. Who's going to miss the playoffs that could be surprising. Players who may not live up to expectations. Who's your surprise championship team? Is in the NFC or AFC championship, and right now we're absolutely not put down the crack. For me, it's Jets.
Really? Okay. I can see that. He's a wide receiver away, but I could definitely see that.
I disagree with that. So Odell's got a job. Odell's coming back. Hyatt is going to be, a gadget type player, but they did just use major draft capital on him. Deontay could really break out. And, Williams is supposedly looking great in camp and really doesn't have any competition to the number 2 role. Like, he's deep enough that I don't think he needs to add a receiver. He could trade a receiver for something he needs. I think he can still move draft capital and get that second running back he was been looking for, but he's talking about moving Kittle for a running back potentially. But Conklin, Freiermuth, and Kittle are on track to start each of their potential tight end spots. I just mentioned 5 or 6 deep at receiver, and he had Jonathan Taylor standing out at running back with C.J. Stroud. Like, that's a really good offense.
Yeah, it is. If he does, I hope he's the number 1 seed if he makes the playoffs.
Well, I mean, let's take a look at the bylaws real fast. Who do the AFC East play this year? This is the tough part. When I actually try to start applying my takes to actual facts.
Well, he just has C.J. Stroud is a Week 14 bye, so that's my biggest concern for him.
Let's see, where is the schedule part of the bylaws? Really should read this more often. Let's see, does it say there? Who's got who? It does. I don't think it does. Are you seeing it?
I'm not. I think. Do we have it in the analytics part of the chat?
Potentially. I feel like somebody's like looked at this and I think you're right. I think someone stored this someplace. Spreadsheets. Does it say there? Olympics, new free agents, salaries, Pro Bowl. Yeah, it doesn't say there. Damn it. All right. Well, I would say if somebody's listening, maybe they could put it in the chat, but nobody's live listening, it says. So that's disappointing.
Oh, that's terrible. My heart's broken.
Yeah, you know, I think we'll survive somehow.
Who is my surprise? That's an interesting one. I can't go with myself.
Yeah, I think you can defend your choice.
Oh, I mean, defend my choice of myself.
Yes,
I think I have the best wide receiver room, and like I think the majority of points comes from wide receiver and those offensive flex spots. So the fact that I have 3 guys that are probably going to be putting up 17 plus, along with like a Saquon, along with probably not having too many bad games from quarterback. Like all I need my defense to do is stay healthy and put up slightly average numbers, and I think I have no issues with competing with any team. The only team that would scare me is like a team that is finished and doesn't need to be doing any buying, like a Browns or a Bengals that is 3 deep at running back, multiple deep at tight end.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, Giants rebuilding, Cowboys is close to competing, but not quite there yet. Commanders is probably a year away in terms of the way he's torn things down. Hopefully, knock on wood, this is your year.
But I also don't think that's too much of a hot take, because I do think I belong in one of those like higher tiers of like teams that could just get it done. So if I had to pick one outside of that, I'm gonna go Jags.
Interesting.
Because I'm starting to really like Keon Coleman. So like if it ends up being like Keon, Calvin Ridley, I don't know, maybe if somebody like Devontae Walker can even put up like 100 points, like I think that's a legit wide receiver group from Jags. You look at the running backs and it's, let's call it 2.5 deep. Pierce is probably going to get some type of looks. He has Pat. If Ertz can be productive, yeah, that team's really good. Matt Judon's back off of injury, so that's a third, like, potentially 200-point defensive end.
Yeah, this would be a really fun team to see. Like, if Keon Coleman looks like he's blowing up, like, again, to your point, this could be a pretty solid receiving room. Or, like, if they're having good camps and somebody loses a key player, like, I feel like Keon Coleman and Tez Walker is going to get you a conversation for anyone but like the top 8 receivers. Like, if things are looking sideways for Buccaneers, I could see like Ayuk or someone of that ilk going for those two.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, one of the players that we just talked about, like a Tank Dell, like that's roughly, what you could probably get. I mean, maybe it doesn't necessarily mesh with what Jets is trying to do, but the idea of taking 2 wide receivers that are worth a pretty decent amount and turning them into one that's slightly more expensive and a little bit more proven, I love that idea.
Well, I mean, and like Lions would be a really fun team to do that. Like, okay, you've got Olave, you've got London, you've got Puka, you've got a really good receiver room. Like, it might not be a bad idea to diversify some of that a little bit out and get rid of some of the stuff that it just doesn't matter. Like, Amari Rogers is never going to do anything for you. Just get him out of there. And there's a couple other positions where it's like, dude, you have the potential to win the division this year. Convert some of this stuff to productive players and then backfill by breaking down some of these studs or perceived studs that may not have really broken out yet into more shots at the wheel.
I really like Lions wide receivers.
They're fun.
Yeah. If everything, like if Puka doesn't lose a step or anything and London becomes the player that we expect, like that's going to be really cool.
Well, that's going to be hilarious. Is like, again, the fun hot take back to the NFL would be after all of this, if the Falcons, after signing Kirk Cousins and probably losing their first or second round pick next year for it, staying and picking Michael Penix to make sure they got the quarterback position covered. They spent early draft capital on Bijan, London, and Pitts. They've added pieces on defense, and they still missed the playoffs. Saying that real life Falcons, not our Falcons right now.
Yeah. So
not just not make the playoffs, they're a top 5 pick next year.
I could see that. So you mentioned Penix, and this is slightly off topic, but like, has Penix gained value? Is he one of those few that's kind of like gained value since the draft? Like since our initial reactions of him being drafted?
So he was taken in our league at, it's not in the notes there. There's the draft report. He was taken 112. So I don't know if I'd move him up. Well, I would. Not sure, except for maybe Knicks, a player in the top 12, I'd move him up in front of right now in that sort of run. But
maybe not necessarily gained value as far as like what somebody would pay for him, but I think there's a lot more buyers now than I think there were people willing to draft him. I don't know. It just a lot of opinions have changed on Penix, and I think it's pretty interesting.
And again, I know I'm probably the last person to make this comparison, but is Penix this year's Russell Wilson?
Where somebody else got brought in and given decent money, and he just happens to win the spot regardless.
Yeah.
That would definitely be interesting. Who's the quarterback that was brought into Seattle at that time?
I think it was Matt Boyle or Matt Flynn. Matt
Matt
Flynn
Flynn.
throws 7 touchdowns in the last game for Green Bay. Everyone loses their mind, and next thing you know, he's getting paid, you know, middle like QB16 money to be the starter for Seattle. And then it's Russell Wilson? Really? No way. They threw all that money at Flynn. It's got to be him. Whoops.
So it definitely would be interesting because I think back then Flynn was considered like pretty expensive, but he wasn't on like the high end.
Right.
Where it would be interesting if they did spend this much money on Cousins and then they just ended up going with Penix. I know with that there would probably need to be more layers. Like Cousins probably isn't completely ready, so they give Penix like one start or even like the whole preseason and he just plays lights out, like to the point where they just can't deny that he's a better choice. But yeah, I don't know. I just thought it was really interesting. I think a lot of people have kind of gotten on board with Atlanta's vision, just as like having a successor already there. Where it was like a lot of our initial reactions were like, oh, well, that's a squandered draft pick. And I think even when I know he wasn't picked by Saints, was it Bill that picked Penix?
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't. I'm sure I shit on that, like when we were reviewing the picks, where like I probably wouldn't at this point.
That's true. At the time, I mean, it was kind of the right friction point for where he was going to go. I wouldn't have taken him over Worthy. I wouldn't have taken him over Benson at the time, but I definitely would have taken him before Keon and McConkey. So, you know, the 112, the 114 makes sense for him. But again, I feel like, to your point, because he's not necessarily going to get a chance to play right away, and, you know, he's going to have his value is going to be insulated for longer.
Yep. He's the Trey Lance of this year. Maybe not outcome, but at least as far as value is not impacted until year 2.
True. And then I guess the other one was, I think Giants and others have said, do a team breakdown of how you would fix the team there. But I mean, the thing about right now is those really make sense when we get either new owners or at the beginning of the year. Like, what are you going to break your team down for now that's going to completely change your fortunes? You're either going to, again, if you're trying to tank right now, sell everything and get to a wild card contender, or if you're a wild card contender, you can try and sell the tank, but a lot of the assets have been consolidated, so you're going to get to the 8th pick. So I feel like, you know, things have kind of almost been declared here. So I don't think we're going to get a major swap in terms of where teams are projected for right now. I think kind of where people are projected, that's where they're in line to be right now.
I think what they're saying is they want a buyers and sellers episode because they want us to go through and pick out random trades that we think should happen. Because they want us to go shopping for them and point out all the decent buys right now.
Well,
or what would be a decent buy.
Yeah, I mean, I was looking at some of the rosters because I am trying to make some trades here, and I think I've only sent like 3 offers this last week, so not one of my more active weeks here, but you know, it's going to take probably some news here or an injury or things like that to actually get some of this stuff moving because you know, hey, Darnold's looked better than McCaffrey so far. Cool. Who's going to give me a 2nd round pick for him? Nobody. if they're still saying that through 2 preseason games, well, maybe I started getting offers for a third. But nobody's taking anything they've heard so far and saying, this is actionable information. I'm going to do something with this.
Yeah, that is true. Oh, Darius Slayton got injured today.
See, there you go. Jalen Hyatt is worth a first now.
Boom. Yep.
I'm joking. Jets, don't offer him to me for a first. I will decline it and then probably give you the middle finger emoji back.
That's funny. Jalen Hyatt worth a first. I can see it.
All it would take is, Slayton to miss extended time, Hyatt working with Neighbors on the starting unit, and then first or second preseason game, he does a Victor Cruz. It's going to happen.
Oh, no. That would be crazy.
All right, I think that's kind of all I've got right now. I don't think there's really much else going on for us to go into more. And I think the last couple of weeks we've had enough guys on to kind of have conversation bounce between a few more and keep things fresh. But for the two of us, half hour is not bad.
No, that is perfectly fine.
Oh, and wow, we actually made it 50 minutes. So time flew even further than I thought it did. So for those of you who are tuning in afterwards, thanks for giving it a listen. I know we're kind of all over the place, but that's kind of where football is right now. There's not a whole lot to really center in on. So keep trades moving, and let's get back in the chat and have some conversations and see if we can make some things happen. But I don't blame you if you don't, because it's that type of year.
Yep. A few more weeks, and then people will be interested in making moves and talking football.
Yeah, I'm kind of pegging the 4th because I think, about that time, people are going to be on vacation. They're going to be drinking, or they're going to be with their families. They're going to be with their families and drinking. And, God, I need a break from this stuff. Let me just, look at my phone real fast. Ooh, there's a trade offer. Maybe I'll log on and see, what I can do with this. Or post in chat, like Buccaneers would. Hey, I'm, on a beach drinking, so send offers. And then, he's asleep by 6:30.
Oh, man. I just realized we still have so long until the season kicks off. Training camp can't come soon enough.
True. Although, preseason starts in August, right?
Yeah.
So about 2 months? Yeah, God, I'm sure it'll feel like a flu when it gets there, but getting there is going to be a bit of a slog.
Yep. We have to slowly make trades just so there's enough news throughout the week.
Yeah, Bill's over here shaking his hand. Damn it, boys, I'm doing everything I can. But nobody cares about cornerbacks still. All right. Well, we'll call it at that. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next week.